What is up, guys? So in this episode here, we're gonna start working on our login modal and getting the design working and the animation and getting all that fancy stuff with the login modal. Okay. Now, right now, if you put in um, some dummy content right here, and we go toggle it. Oh crap! Hold on. Okay, there we go. So it's working. So if we go to toggle it, we can see the hello back and forth, right? Now in our case, we want to have the login modal you show that back and forth, okay, instead of this hello, right? Um, if you haven't checked out my previous video where I introduced the React hooks to set up the state, that's in episode 14 of this series. If you want to go ahead and check that out, it's in the playlist episode 14, okay? So let's get started with the login modal. So I'm in the login modal file right now, and we're going to go ahead and create the structure and how this is going to look. Alright, so we're going to have our section here, give it a class name equal to login wrapper. Our login wrapper is basically going to be the background tint of the modal. When you bring the modal down and then the background gets like a darker tint to it, that's going to be what our login wrapper is going to be. Alright. Then we're going to have a div, class name equal to login content. As you expect, this is going to be the content of our login modal. So it's going to be our form and our login header that's going to be in it and all of that good stuff. So then what we want now is we're going to have, once we get all of the HTML and whatnot, once we get all of that, then we work on the CSS. Okay. So right now, we're going to put a button in here. Oh, not that. Okay, and this is going to be our exit button to exit out of the login modal. And then we're going to have a div, the class name set up here. We won't put nothing in there for now, not just yet. And inside here we're going to have h3 that says login, which is going to be the header. And then another div. No, not another div. I'm in a form. Do the form tag. And this is where all of our form is going to go. Okay. So we're going to apply some styles here. This is going to be a flex box. And the H3 and the form is going to stack on top of each other instead of next to each other. Okay. So that's what I want to have. That's why we have to put this in a main div to wrap all of these to do the flex box. Okay. So we're going to put flex on here. Okay, and since we want to be on top of each other, we're going to have to do flex column, like that. And how I'm getting these classes is from the Tailwind, so let me open that up. And if we go to flex, like that, we'll see all the flex box classes that we can apply to our divs. Okay, so the flex initializes that it's going to be a flex box, and then the flex call, which is actually the flex direction. Yeah, flex call. It has a flex direction of column, so it's stacking on top of each other. Okay, and so the next thing you want to do is that we want these items to be aligned in the center. So we'll say items center. like that. And then we'll do H for the height. You can look at that here by doing height, and it gives you all of the properties you can use for the height of the classes, I should say. And height full gives a height of 100%. And then after the height, we want to give a padding up and down. So padding vertically is Y, so that's up and down basically of 8. And then what we want to do for the text part here, let's give that a class name. We're going to make this text bigger because right now the login, if you can see it, the login right here is like super duper small, and we don't want that, right? So we'll do text to, because that'll make the text bigger. So now if you see it, it's bigger. Okay. Now how I got that is to go in by font sizes. And these are the font sizes you can add to any text to make it bigger. So I just grabbed the 2XL to make it just a little bit bigger. Okay. Now the form is another thing. So the form, we can search here for forms, and they have like example of forms that you can, different styles that you can apply to the right here, but they have other ones. Make this bigger. They have other ones like inline form. I think they have one that's the grid form, and they have the underline form, which doesn't really look good in my opinion. But we're gonna go with the basic one, which is the regular login form, because that's basically what we're doing at this point anyway. We're using the login modal, so we're gonna use that one. It's perfect for what we're doing right now. So let me make this bigger again. I don't know why I did that. So we're just going to grab this whole form tag, just the form, not the divs. Copy that. And we're going to use that here instead of this form. We're going to use that. We got some errors. Closing tag for inputs. Closing tag. Closing tag. Alright, good. So we got the closing tag for that. Now that we have the form down, so like when we look at it, of course it's going to look like that. We have to fix it up with the CSS, but we'll get into that. But that's how it looks right now. Just want to make sure all of my HTML half is covered before I get into the CSS. So let's go ahead and basically switch this around, switch the username around, because ours is going to be email and password when we log in. So let's change everything else to email. So that will be email. The label will be for email. The type of it will be email, ID, email, placeholder, email. Oh, actually, for the placeholder, I want to put like e.g and then in like test@mail.com. This is like a helper placeholder, so they'll know like an example of what an email should look like. So I'm going to put that there. We don't need this. Yeah, we don't need this password part right here. We can get rid of that. We don't need this forgot password either. We're not doing anything like that in our app. So if we look at it now, that looks better. Well, of course, it doesn't look better, but we just eliminated the stuff that we don't need. The red for that password, I'm gonna have to delete. Where's that at? Border. Okay. Delete that. Sorry, throat. Gotta clear my throat. Okay, so it doesn't have that, so that's good. So it's looking good so far, right? Now let's go ahead and style this up with the CSS. Let's create a CSS file for this one. So in the components, we'll do login, modal.css. Oh yeah, by the way, if this looks different, if the text looks different, it's because I use Masquerade font family. I imported that file behind the scenes, of course. I imported the Masquerade file from Google Fonts, and then I used that in the where is it? I think it's app. Yeah, I used that in the app.css, this Masquerade file, so that's why the text looks a little better. So I did that. If you guys want to go ahead and grab that font. I didn't put that in the video because it was just like a regular font. I wasn't really, I didn't think that should have been included in the video. But yeah, so the CSS part of this login modal, the first thing we have to do is let me refer to my notes here. Okay, so the form, we have to give our form a class on it. So it's like where is it? Right here. So I'm going to give this a class of form. And then over here, I'm going to do dot form. And then I'm going to give it a width of 480 pixels. And then the height is going to be 280 pixels, like that. Okay. And then, oh yeah, I didn't import it. That's why it's not showing up. Hold on. Import. Always got to make sure you import your CSS styles in here, or it's not going to render. So let me do that. Login modal.css. So now we got that in there. Okay, see, that's what it looks like. You can't tell right now because the background of the form is the same background as the login content. We'll change that in a second. And then what we want to do is the login wrapper. The login wrapper that I said was going to have like that tint looking background. We have to go ahead and get that styled. We'll say the width of it is going to be 100%. And of course the height is going to be 100%. That I spell height wrong. No, I didn't. It's because of that. There we go. So the width and height of it is 100%. The background of it is going to have like a tint color. So that's going to be like a RGB color. And then we're going to say 0 for the red, and then 0 for the green, 0 for the blue. And then the opacity of it is going to be like a 0.3. So it'll be like a somewhat gray, but not really. Yeah, see that background to it? See, it already makes it look different because of the background tint color. Alright, that login is supposed to be in here, but it's because of our login content is not the same color, but we'll get into that. Also, we want to make the position of it fixed. So it's going to be out of document flow, of course. fixed, right? And then the top is going to be 0. And to make sure it's stacked on top of each other, do a z-index of 1, like that. So if we look at it now, it's on top of everything, and then the tint color is like the background color is like stacked on top, so you can still see the content. All right. So that's looking good. The login content now is going to be a position of fixed as well. And then the top of it is going to be a negative 200 pix. So it's going to be positioned up here, because when we do the animation, it's going to slide down, start from this point, and slide down into the middle. Okay. So that's why it has to be starting right there at that point. Now on the left, we're going to have like some padding, 350. No, I think it's 330. No, 53 pixels. So it's over. It moved it over basically. Okay. Now it looks weird because I got it scrunched up, but we'll see it once we get done on the big screen. And then the height of it is going to be 350 pix. And then the background, it's actually going to be this F4, 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 or not that many, 4. I think it's like a slightly grayish color right now. Yeah, so if you look at it, yeah, it's a slightly grayish color right now. Alright. Then the part that we want to animate is this whole login content right here. Okay. So we have to set an animation to this. So we'll say animate, and then we have to give it a name of what we want to call it, and we'll call it modal animate. That's what we call it. And then the duration of this animation, basically how long is it gonna last? We'll say 1 second. We don't want to last it too long, like 0.8 seconds. We don't want to, because then it'll come down like really slow, and then it wouldn't seem like a good user experience for it to be that slow. So it needs to be like quick, but slide in, you know, in a good time frame. Okay. So then we'll say ease in, because it'll ease into the animation. So it'll, once again, it'll flow smoothly. And then we have to put forwards. So when the animation is done, it stops wherever the animation is stopping at. Okay. So if we don't put the forwards, it'll come down, it'll stop where we want it to stop, and then it'll go back up. Okay, like it'll like restart the animation, but we don't want that. So the forwards brings it down, and then wherever it stops at, it just stops. It doesn't restart. Okay, so you'll see what that's like in a second if you don't quite understand what that means. I'll show you in a second. And then we're gonna add a media query to it, so it will look good on mobile, because right now on a small screen you can't even see it. So we're going to add a media query. We'll say media screen, and we'll say max width 640 pix. Now I say max width is with the max width is 640 pix and below. Okay, so anything that's 640 pix and lower, this is what it's going to look like. So we'll say the login content, the left is going to be 10 pixels, and then the width is going to be 30 rep. Okay. See, like now as you can see, it's actually in the picture of this of the small screen. So if we get like even smaller like that, you can actually now, when it slides down, it will slide right down in the middle, and it will look good on, you know, this size. Okay. All right. Now what we got to do is we got to style the button, the exit button, the little X button, this button here, the close button. We got to style that as well. So we'll say class name. We'll call it close-btn. And then down here we'll say, well, I should say down here, we'll do login content. And we'll do close-btn. We'll say the position of this button is also absolute, but it's absolute to the form, not absolute to the actual page. Okay. So then we'll say the top is going to be 5 pixels. So it's in the corner of the form, but it's dropping down like 5 pixels from the corner. And then the right, which means it's going to be on the right side, is going to be 5 pixels as well. Okay. So it gives it some space on the right side as well. The overall padding of it, well, do I need padding? Consider I'm putting the top in the right. Yeah, padding. Okay, so the padding is going to be 0.5 EM, so just a little bit of padding. And then the height is going to be 32 pixels, right? Now the last thing we got to do, now that we got the button, you'll see how the button looks once we do the whole animation and see the modal. But now that we got the button style, the last thing we need to do now is do the animation. Okay, so let's do our keyframes, because that's how we're going to do this animation. We're going to use keyframes, and it has to be the same name we gave it here, because that's the name that we're going to use. This is the animation. This is the animation that our content is going to use. So that's why we have to give the same name. Alright, so we're going to do 0%. So at percentages, at 0%, the opacity of it is going to be 0. Okay, so by default, you don't see it. Of course, you don't see it anyway because we don't hit the login button. But when we hit it, it's going to be at 0 capacity. And then when it slides down, then it's going to fade in. So it's going to have that fade out, fade in type effect. Well, not fade out, but it's going to have that fade in effect. Okay, by it being at 0 for starters. And then at 100%, then we're going to do a transform. Now remember how I said that the login content is at negative 200 pixels. So it's up here, right? So at 100%, we want it to transform down, right? So we have to do a transform in order to do that. So we'll say transform, translate, and they have different type of translates, but we want to use the Y because the Y axis, because the Y goes up and down. If we was translating it going for the X, it will go across. But in our case, we need the Y. And then we specify how many pixels we want it to go down. We want it to go down 300 pixels. Okay. So it's starting at negative 200, and then it's coming down 300 pixels. Wherever 300 pixels is at, that's where it's going to come down to. Okay. At this animation. And then after it comes down to that, we're going to have that fade in effect by saying the opacity is going to be 1. So You don't see it, the opacity is 0, and then it fades in as it comes down, and then it fades back into 1. Okay? So now, let's see how that works. Let's first see it on a smaller version. If we click it, boom. Of course, we're going to have to fix all of that, but as you can see, it slided down real nice and easy. Okay? So let's try that on the big screen. When we click it, boom. See how it fades into the opacity being 1, how it was like 0, and then it started to fade in as it goes down. That's the kind of effect that we want, so that is good. Okay. The reason why that background color is like that is because that is the login content. The login content is this color, but our form is not that color. So put our form that color and it should be the same. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that looks good. Alright. Yeah, see, as you can see, our X button looks pretty good. Our login looks good. And everything looks good. Alright. So that's our login model. Or login modal. Okay. I'm not sure if we have time to do, probably not. I'll probably make another video where we do the register modal. It's kind of like the same thing, but I'm trying to think. We could do the register modal right now just to like knock it out the park, and then in the next video we'll work on the form validations and all that. So yeah, let's try to do the register form as well, okay? Just so we can have both of them, alright? So now that we got the login form, let's work on the register. So we got the register modal right here. Of course, it's empty. Let's go ahead and just copy everything from here, actually. Okay? And then we'll just modify what we want and whatnot. So let's make that small. Word wrap. Okay? So let's just change some stuff here. First, this is going to be a register modal. Okay? This is going to be named register modal. I'm changing all the classes. Register wrapper, can't spell. Register content. In this one, we're going to need another field, because in the register one we have the username, email, and password. Okay, so let's copy one of these fields and make another one, and this is going to be the username. Username, and the placeholder type is actually going to be text for this. The ID is going to be username. And then the placeholder is going to be username, like that. And then we basically want it to look the same way. Okay, so this one's going to say register. Instead of sign in, it will say sign up. Okay. Alright, and we have to create a CSS CSS file for this. So what we can do is go register modal.css. Okay, and it's basically going to have the same CSS as our login, but we just like change the classes to register. Okay, so it's basically the same thing is going to be happening. Got form. This one say register. Register wrapper. That there. Change it there. Okay, and now in the register, we're going to have the register modal CSS. Okay. Now, just like, okay, so, sorry, I'm switching back and forth. Just like the login modal, let me bring back the login modal. Okay, so now, if we bring it out, let me refresh this, of course. If we click the register button, it's not going to do anything because we didn't link this button to toggle back and forth the register modal. Right now, only the login has it. Okay, so we have to make one for the register as well. All right, so in our sidebar, which is what we're in right now, this is our sidebar. Let me delete some of these. In our sidebar, make this bigger. In our sidebar, we have the login, right? Toggle login. Now we have to create one for the toggle register, okay? So we can do on click equals toggle register. Okay, that's the name that we're going to give the method that we're going to create in a second. Okay, so we got the toggle login. Let's copy that and make a toggle register. Like that, right? Now what this one is going to do is this one is going to do the same thing. It's going to toggle back and forth. Get that console.log out of there. We don't need it. It's going to do like the same thing that the login does. It's going to toggle it back and forth, but it's not going to toggle the login toggle. It's going to toggle the register toggle. Now we have to create that though. Okay, so here we do the register toggle. Okay, so we have to put this in our state because right now we don't have this in our state. We only have the login toggle in our state. So let's go back to here to our state context, and as you can see, we only have our login toggle. So now we need to add our register toggle, and that's going to be equal to false by default. Okay, so now we have access to this property in our state. In the sidebar, we sidebar. Okay, in our sidebar, we are passing in our old state and then updating the register toggle to whatever the opposite is in our state. Okay, so toggling it back and forth from true to false, right? So now the toggle register does that. Now we have to render it conditionally based on true or false, right? So we did that in our home, in our home.js. So remember how we render the login modal if the state of the login toggle is either true or false? We have to do that same exact thing for our register toggle. And then we're gonna render our register modal. Okay, so we put it right below it. It's gonna come down in the same place. It's not gonna be like one is higher than the other, nothing like that. It's gonna come down exactly the same. Okay, so now that we got that, let's see, register modal not defined. Oh yeah, we have to import that component. Register modal. Register modal. We could delete that console log. Now the register modal login modal is not defined. Oh yeah, I didn't export it. Did I? Oh yeah. I exported the login modal, that's why. Register modal. Okay. So now, make sure our login is still working. Boom, login's working. And then we exit that out, and then click the register, moment of truth. Boom, that works as well. Okay, so the only adjustment that we have to make is that we have to make our form height more, because now it's not high enough. So 450. Oh, that's nasty. But not really. Oh no, this is the content. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do the form. I want the form to be higher, so 350. Yeah, that's good. Alright, so that's looking good. Alright. I could probably do the exit button real quick. Did I put the media query on that one? Let me see. Oh yeah, so this is going to be register content. There we go. Alright, so the exit button, the close button, if we go up here, I probably should do the close button in the next video because that involves yeah, I'll probably do the close buttons in the next video along with validating the form, so I'll do it in that one. So yeah, that's all I wanted to do in this video. I hope you guys like that. If you do, go ahead and hit that like button. There will be more videos to come, and I will see you guys in the next one.